Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to the Business Innovators Radio podcast. I'm your host, Rick Brown. My guest today says that while growing up under some difficult circumstances, he developed a personality around never asking for gifts for fear of upsetting the process that he and his mother endured getting from Jamaica to upstate New York with some very meager beginnings and plenty of challenges along the way. But as a result of that upbringing, Alex Cunningham committed to his adult life the act of achieving financial freedom and creating a financial net for his family. Today, Alex is a certified athletic trainer and owner of Lifestyle Hurdles, where he focuses on athletic development for athletes of all ages. And of course, with running your own business comes the management of the financial aspect of a company. And that in turn led Alex to launch his own financial literacy podcast. Alex joins us today to share some insight on the importance of financial literacy and preparing financially for the future, even amongst the chaos that was 2020. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. I want to get into your backstory a little bit here in just a minute. But before we get there, I want you to tell us real quick about what exactly that it is that you do and how you help clients. All
right. So as you mentioned, I'm an athletic trainer by day, and then by night, I throw my cape on and I do my podcast. In there, I try to essentially break down financial literacy in terms of how to invest in the stock market, what to look for in real estate, affiliate marketing, really anything that has to do with money. I know a lot of people are in a similar situation as me. And like you said, I started my podcast during the pandemic for that very reason. A lot of people were put in a position where they didn't have work anymore, or their hours are very limited, or some kind of financial storm hit them. And a lot of people don't know that it's okay for the average person to find other ways to make money and then eventually leave their job. I think a lot of people are still in that old school kind of World War II mindset of getting the job, working till retirement, and then getting out. And I think COVID really showed much of America that time is long past. I mean, you could work for as long as you want, and at the end of the day, you're still just an employee. So my goal now is to teach as many people as I can to earn streams of income outside of their job and to really understand money so that should this happen again, they're not in fear for themselves or their family.
Yeah, I think COVID not only showed people, I think it forced them into, rethinking and pivoting and trying to have to figure out something new. And like you said, kind of in the midst of everything that's happened in the past year, a lot of people kind of from both sides of the house have figured out how to use the virtual world to do a lot of this. I wonder how much of that, I mean, obviously, you got into podcasting, but are you seeing this kind of virtual communication impacting the financial literacy world?
I think it's great. I think it's a great opportunity. I think the fact that everything is virtual makes people think outside the box a little bit more. When you're going to work all day, every day, 8 hours a day, you're either in a box or you're outside, but you're in your own little world. Where when you sit virtually, you have the entire world on your computer. So it makes it a lot more digestible for you to take an online course or to sit in a webinar, like things that people weren't doing at all before. You're kind of forced into this new, I guess, societal thing that everyone has to do. Webinars now to you aren't so foreign. Right. If you worked at, say, Amazon and you were working 12-hour shifts, you weren't sitting down for a webinar. Or, if you worked at a desk job for 8 hours, you weren't watching a webinar when you got home. You were watching TV. But now that you're so accustomed to, looking at the screen and, learning to work the software, you and I were talking about learning to work Zoom, people are more comfortable with being able to navigate the internet and navigate finding sources of entertainment, but also information on the internet. So I think it's a good time for podcasters like us, but also people who are willing to launch online courses or anything like that, where they're taking advantage of this new attention on this landscape.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. You mentioned something about multiple streams of income. Talk about that for a second, if you can, and what is meant by multiple streams of income.
Multiple streams of income, I guess it's something that I guess it is a little foreign to some people because you don't really get taught that in school. None of us did, including myself. You can go to a charter school, a public school, a private school. It doesn't matter where you go. There's not really in the curriculum. You're taught to work and get a job and get paid. Well, that's one stream of income, which just means the money's coming from one place. Having multiple streams of income just means that money comes from somewhere outside of your job. So that could be if you're somebody who works a 9-to-5 job, but you also know how to do hair. Maybe you babysit once in a while and you make money. That's another stream of income. Although it is active income, which means you have to be there to get it, it's still another way for you to make money. So in times of hardship where now your job is somehow compromised, or maybe you have less hours, or something happens where you're not getting income from one area, your job and your lifestyle isn't isolated around one source, right? You're able to get money in from a different area.
Yeah, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. And I think, too, a lot of, when you take a look at, habits of the wealthy, they are not where they are financially because they banked on only one stream of income, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Warren Buffett is, he's a key stakeholder in Coca-Cola, and he works far less hours than the CEO that works for him. And their incomes, I mean, as you would probably very well know, are vastly different. And again, that just because it doesn't matter how high paying your job is, if it's only coming from one place, there will eventually be a ceiling. There has to be a ceiling. So the people that we see on TV who are making billions and millions of dollars, they're making sure that, one place doesn't pay them, or else you're going to have that cap.
Yeah. And I don't particularly follow the path of, this is the way it has to be for everybody. Shooting to become wealthy is a good goal, but I'm not the kind of person who says that should be everybody's top priority. There are other things that come with that. So I don't know why I kind of felt like the need to say that, but there's a lot of people who will promote the hustle mentality, and the only goal is to get rich. And I think there's so much more along the way. And, they say money can't buy you happiness. It can't help you experience more things in life that will make you happy. But I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on about that, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you in a sense that I understand what you're saying. But I think there's a difference between how you feel and what other people think, where you're saying it from a side of, okay, well, I understand that money is important, but it's not the only thing. Where the majority of people see it in a sense of money is not everything because I don't know how to get it, so I need to use that to protect myself in the event that someone asks me about it, right? So if I'm not making enough money, if someone says, don't you want to make more money, you can really defend yourself by saying, well, money isn't everything, right? So a lot of people use it as a defense mechanism where they deep down do want to experience the things that you talked about, experience more of a life that could make them more happy, but not having the knowledge or the ability or the courage to go after it. They throw up a defense barrier and say, well, money isn't everything. So I think there's two ways to look at it. And that phrase is very powerful. And I agree with it 100%. You don't need $100 billion to enjoy life. But at the same time, it shouldn't be a defense mechanism for you to not do anything.
I think it's the way we're raised, right?
Yeah.
Even as kids, we're taught ideas like that about money. There was a book I read years ago, T. Harv Eker, and I can't for the life of me remember the name of it.
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I'm reading.
Yeah, that must have been it. Yeah, and he talks a lot about that mindset of how we were raised and the ideals that, coming from a different time. Even I'm a little bit older and growing up in the late 60s, early 70s. there weren't as many people making the kind of money that you see today, right? I think those levels between the classes were a little bit more very well defined, and more people were sitting down in lower and in middle class, and there were making a bunch of money. Although maybe people could argue that now, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a big part of the book, and like I said, I'm reading it for the second or third time now, because it is, even though I've read it, I'm still finding myself today using those same mechanisms. I mean, maybe not that particular phrase, but say my girlfriend wants some Starbucks, and immediately I'm going, holy crap. $11 for a small coffee. We could go to Dunkin' Donuts and get something for $2. So that's an immediate mind response that I have. So I have to reread that book to kind of reprogram myself to look at money in a different way. And yeah, like you said, it is the way you are raised gives you a perspective on a lot of things, but be it socially, financially, spiritually, everything that you are at a certain age was programmed into you. Now, if you're in your 20s and you don't notice the programming, then it becomes something that you're habituating yourself into. But up until your teenage years to your early 20s, you don't even notice it. I mean, it just comes out. You can't even stop it at sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what's the name of the book again, T. Harv Eker?
Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Yeah, that's funny. It really is funny you mentioned that, because I love that book.
Yeah, it's a great book. Highly recommend it. So tell me so you're talking about financial literacy with your own podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
Market Adventures Podcast.
Market Adventures Podcast. Who are you trying to reach with that material?
I'm trying to reach everybody like me, people who are working, but are interested in making money, be it if you want to be rich or if you just want to answer some financial problems that you have right now. You just want solutions to them. It's not so much targeted to people who already have millions of dollars, because what I'm saying they've probably already done to get to that point. But for the average person, again, like me, I have a girlfriend. I have 2 children. I still work. I'm doing the dad thing. I'm doing the work thing, but also I have to make time to invest, because I know that it'll pay off in the future. So people who are like me, who may have children or don't, but are working, but seeking something else to pay them long term, right? They're seeking dividends in the future. And again, that could be people who want to do real estate, people who want to do stock market, affiliate marketing, social media marketing, whatever they really want to draw money out of. I try to talk about in bits and pieces. I mean, stock market for me is kind of what I like to specialize in. But I do spend a lot of time researching affiliate marketing, social media branding, and real estate, because I like to have that information, because I know it'll all tie together.
Is there somewhere where you see trends with younger people in their 20s? Are you seeing a trend of where it is they want to invest?
Well, with TikTok coming out, I mean, it could be a godsend, and it could also be the worst thing that ever happened. I mean, 20-year-olds down to 15, 16-year-olds are getting bombarded with people who made money using Robinhood during the financial crisis, which, I mean, if you had just picked one company and just said it was going to go down, you were going to make money. I mean, you were throwing rocks into a lake at that point. So now there's a lot of people selling courses on it and throwing TikToks up there and YouTube videos about how they made money. And I noticed that 20-year-olds and early teenagers are being drawn into that particular crowd of, how do I make money fast because this person made it in 3 months, not realizing that anybody who had even a small amount of knowledge or some luck could have made money from March until now, because everything came down very fast. Everything went up very fast. If you had caught either wave, you would have made money. So I think a lot of 20-year-olds are being misinformed or just a little ignorant to the fact that it's not as easy as it seems to get there, but it also is just a very, very very good timing by those people.
So what do you recommend then for younger folks who say, hey, man, I need to start investing. I know I need to do that. I don't really understand much of it. You know, what kind of advice do you have for folks like that?
I think if I were to look for 20-year-olds, I think Simon Sinek had a speech about it. He spoke about knowing what game you're playing, and he defined two games, the infinite game and the finite game. And he mentioned it speaking about companies where Apple knows it's playing the infinite game. And whoever made, I don't know if you remember Zune, I believe it was Zune. It was the competitor to the iPod. It was waterproof. It was super thick. It had way more storage than Apple, but everybody still bought the iPod. Even though the iPod was very fragile, people still bought the iPod. And I think having the difference in understanding what game you're playing. So I think if you're a 20-year-old, I think 20-year-olds need to understand that it's the long game. If you can play the long game and retire, quote unquote retire, I'm being a little facetious, but if you can retire at 40 and do a little bit of work now and invest in smaller, safer things and not make the money now but work, then you'll be able to really enjoy that at the end of your life. Versus playing the small game and saying, I need to make money now. How do I buy options? How do I jump in Robinhood? How much money should I take my entire savings and put it onto this company? Instead of playing that game of I need to make money now and enjoy my 20s, learn how to invest in your 20s. Learn how to have patience in your 20s, because it's a lot funner at the end of the ride. I mean, if you're 40 years old and you can enjoy your time with your family, you can have children and decide whether or not you want to go to work, or you can work part-time, right? If you can decide these things later on in your life, those are the years you can really, really enjoy while also making some money now. But you got to understand where your aim should be, what your goal should be.
Yeah. And even, we're talking about younger folks and folks in their 20s, but even older folks, who had a late start on planning for their financial future often don't really know, again, how to get started, where to get started. Do you see any kind of any differences between where older folks want to go as opposed to the 20-year-olds, or is there different advice you would give to someone who's a little bit later in life?
Yeah, and it's interesting you said that, because there's a flip-flop in the financial industry of the way that they suggest investing. They always suggest 20-year-olds and younger folks to be more aggressive. And they suggest older folks to be more conservative and to plan for retirement.
Yeah, as you get closer to retirement, you want to be more conservative, right?
That's what they say. But
right.
here's what I see as the difference. The caveat is, if you're 50 and you have $20,000, maybe $30,000 saved up in some kind of 401k, you right now do not have anything to retire on, right? Because between Social Security and that $40,000, you'll be working in 20 years, not probably 15 years. You'll be working again. Whereas if you're 20 years old and you have that same amount saved up, you could invest that into a slow-moving ETF or index fund, and by the time you're in your 60s, you'll have a decent amount to retire on. So time is really what people should be focused on in terms of determining their aggressiveness when they're investing. If I'm 26 now. At 26 years old, I could save $100 every single paycheck, so $200 a month. And I can invest that into an index fund, ETF. And over time, if I wait, say, probably 30, 40 years out in the line, if I keep investing and with the growth that happens just naturally in the market, I'll have $1 million sitting there. I can retire somewhere around $1 million to $3 million. In Florida, you have to have around $3 million to retire comfortably. If you're in your 50s, you don't have that much time. So in your 50s, it is imperative, or 60s, wherever, it is imperative that you spend more time learning how to invest more aggressively, but with intelligence and patience. So that's the difference between the older generation and the younger generation. The younger generation is very impatient. They won't play the long game. Patience, though, is a vital skill in aggressive investing and trading. If you're 50 and 60 years old, you've gotten to a point where you don't have a fear of missing out. You don't have FOMO, as they call it. You don't have a need to get in and out of a trade. You can sit on something for weeks or months at a time. If you're an older person and you get into investing and you get some information, you get an advisor, however you want to do it, you can be much more aggressive with your investing, pull out a much larger amount of the market and put into your savings account because you have the patience to stick to a rule set, stick to a plan, and to wait for your earnings to get to the highest amount of profit possible before you pull out. That is the advantage that I see for the older generation versus the younger generation, is that patience, right? So at 26, I have no patience. It takes me, I have to put the phone away. I have to distract myself because I want to get in and I want to get out. As you get older, you get more patient. And that's a vital skill. Warren Buffett trades options. He just doesn't talk about it. Warren Buffett preaches buy and hold, but Warren Buffett trades options.
Because options are traded quickly,
Options are fast, but you can buy long-term options. You can buy options that last years at a time. But the skill is you have to have patience because volatility moves the market so quickly. You have to have the patience and the knowledge to buy the options at the right price in the right direction and then just sit and just wait. And the same thing goes with stocks as well. So back to your original question, that would be my advice, is if you're in your 50s and you don't have at least close to $1 million in your 401k, you're not close enough to retirement where you can invest passively in index funds and ETFs. You want to get some education, get an advisor, and look to be a little more aggressive where you can start really building that nest egg so you can retire comfortably, because the time difference between a 26-year-old and a 50-year-old is so vastly different.
Yeah. What do you know about some of these companies? I was just, I had to look it up. A company called Stash. If you're familiar with them, an investing company, investing platform where you can buy, I guess, like fractional shares of stocks. You know anything about those?
Yes. So actually, it's funny. I did an episode about what they're called robo-investors. There's robo-investors, and then there's just regular retail brokers like Robinhood. Stash is kind of a combination where Stash allows you to robo-invest, where robo-invest essentially means they invest the money for you. You don't have any idea what's going on. They move your money around. You just set a particular target that you want. Maybe you're aggressive, maybe you're not. Your growth versus like defense or stronger stocks. And then you can also, like you said, be more active with your portfolio and actually buy the shares yourself. Stash to me it's very tempting because the idea of I can do both, but it also limits how aggressive you are to seek information because it can be done for you. So you can sit and invest, or you can just move your money over here and it can be done for you. Chances are you're going to be tempted to move to the other side. Fractional shares and buying fractional shares used to be Stash's hallmark. But now you can buy fractional shares on Robinhood. You can buy fractional shares on TD Ameritrade. You can buy fractional shares on a majority of platforms now. So now Stash only has that robo-investor side to really separate itself from a platform like a Robinhood or a TD Ameritrade. Robo-investing can be good, but I think it's a stepping stone. I think companies like Stash and utilizing those apps are a stepping stone. It's like riding a bike with training wheels before you ditch your training wheels before you get into a car, right? TD Ameritrade is the car. Now, the benefit of TD Ameritrade is you can fake trade with fake money, and you can also learn how to drive the car at the same time without risking anything. It's like driving in a parking lot like we used to do when we learned how to drive, right? You can jump onto a more advanced platform, and the benefit of that is you have a lot more control. When you use something like Stash, the gains that you can have, because they have a payment service that you have to even have to use it, the amount of money that you can actually make is capped. It's very limited. So if you don't have the time now, I think Stash is a good entry point because it'll give you a little taste. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to get addicted to it. You want to use it to, okay, I don't have time to learn now, or I'm learning, but I still don't know what to do. Let me put my money here because I know it'll move a little bit. And then once I learn a little bit more, let me take it out and actually do it myself, right? Money is not meant to sit still. So if you have no other options besides, okay, saving account or Stash because I'm still learning, well, then take it out of the saving account and put it in Stash because at least it'll move at least a little bit. You'll get a little bit of returns there, 0.5%, maybe 1%. Then once you learn what to do, take it out of stash and then you jump into the car, right? Jump into TD Ameritrade and take what you've learned to now start building your portfolio to your own comfort.
Good advice. 26 years old. How'd you get here, man? I mean, you probably know quite a bit more about financial literacy than many people your age. At least that's how it was when I was your age. It took us a while to kind of realize, oh yeah, I got to quit partying and spending all my money on girls, and I need to start investing some money. Right? So let's get back to your backstory. Tell us where you came from and why this became an interest for you.
Like you mentioned, I came from Jamaica, and we grew up in a very big family. My mother was one of 14 children, and I was an only child, but I had a lot of cousins to grow up with. So I grew up with a deep desire to keep my family together, or at least be able to support and help other people in my family. And then as we were growing up, and times weren't, I can't say we had it hard, because I know people who had it worse, but we were in a position where I grew with a characteristic in myself that I decided not to really ask for anything, right? Christmas, birthdays, it didn't matter what it was. I didn't really want anything. And I noticed that it wasn't because I didn't want it. It was because I saw money as something that was limited. And I didn't want to be the reason why we had less of it. So getting to a point where I was in middle school, high school, I decided I wanted to get rich. And it dawned on me later on in life that I wanted to get rich because of my family ties, but also that thought of, I'm not asking, not because I don't want it, but because I'm afraid to impact our progress. So if I get rich, then I can make sure that nobody else has to experience that. If anybody needs a home, I can buy a home. If anybody needs to travel, they can travel. If anybody needs anything, I can be that financial backing, but also I can help support people who have that ambition of me, like me, but don't necessarily want to be involved in the stock market. Maybe somebody wants to start a restaurant or some kind of business, but they know they won't qualify for a loan, or they know they won't, they don't have the money to staff it or supply it. Well, that's where I would come in, right? So having money for me just gives me the power and the ability to help more people, right? It's not necessarily to buy it to spend it myself. So when I realized that I need a lot of money to do the things that I want to do, I simply just looked at it like, okay, well, what can get me there? I did want a high-paying job at one point. I remember in middle school where we were looking up professions. I wanted to be a zoologist. Then I looked up how much they got paid, scratched it off. I wanted to be there were so many things I wanted to be, and I ended up narrowing it down to accountant. And I said, well, accountants make good money, and I'm also good at math. But then as I got older, I lost interest in that. And I decided that, okay, well, I don't need a job that pays me a lot. I need to find out how to make money like these people. So then I just started reading books. And once I started reading books and watching YouTube videos and things like that, it just opened up my mind to all the other possibilities. I guess the
power of books.
Yes. And you don't realize the power until you understand that there's nothing new on the face of the earth. Everything's been done already. There might be innovations, but everything concretely at its foundation has been done. If you can find a book, and Will Smith said this too, if you can find a book to do what you want to do, you can still scale it up to modern day, but everything you have is already written down somewhere. You just got to go find it. So once I figured that out, I just started reading and reading and reading. The stock market to me just drew me in because I love numbers and I love the game. I feel like it's a competition. I feel like there's somebody at the other end of the computer. And if I win, great. I'm happy. If I lose, you beat me this time, but I'm going to figure out how to come back and beat you again. So I guess it kind of feeds both parts of me, the sports side and also the desire to get financially independent side.
Yeah, good on you. You mentioned, we mentioned books. We mentioned T. Harv Eker a little bit earlier. Do you have a favorite book or one that's on your nightstand right now that you would recommend?
I mean, the cliche, there's two, can I say two cliche books and then I'll say my favorite? The two cliche books that are actually really good books. I just say they're cliche because everyone says them is Rich Dad, Poor Dad right? I mean, you knew that was coming. Everybody knows coming.
Yep.
It's a great book, though.
It is a great book. That was one of my I think that was probably one of the first financial literacy books I read, and it blew my mind.
I think that was most of us. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is one of the first books a lot of people who seek financial success read, because it was one book that just makes it so simple. And you're flipping through the pages and you're like, are you sure you can use drawings to explain money?
Yeah, right.
Is that even allowed?
Yeah, the quadrant.
Yeah, the quadrant. So there's that, and then there's Richest Man in Babylon. Now, I think I would have to say either Richest Man in Babylon, but also Secrets to the Millionaire Mind. I think those two combined will make somebody unstoppable. And I think it's because your mindset is 95% of everything. Money is 100% fake, right? The value behind money is 100% fake. If you can understand your mind, then you can now control everything that's fake. And money falls into that same stream of income, right? So if you can understand your mind and understand that you control everything and you can attract what you want, you can change certain situations by changing your mind. If you want a Tesla, say you want a Tesla, you'll start seeing Teslas everywhere. Your bank account will go up and then you'll have a Tesla. Like, if you can understand those small things, you can control money. And that's what Secrets of the Millionaire Mind gives you. Richest Man in Babylon teaches you how to manage money. So you can't now have money and not know how to manage it. So I think if you combine those two things of, okay, how do I bring money to me through changing my mind? And now how do I handle it once it gets here? If you can control those two things, I think those two books can change anybody's life. And they're short. I love short books.
All right. Good recommendations there. Hey, are you familiar with the Proust Questionnaire?
No.
Okay, so Marcel Proust was a French writer back in the early 1900s who believed that in answering this set of questions he wrote back in the early 1900s, that an individual reveals his or her true nature. Mm-hmm. So if you're game, I'd love to run a couple of these by you. They're pretty harmless questions. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like the questions, just say pass. But the idea is that you just kind of answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
First thing that comes to mind. Oh, yep. That's dangerous. Let's do it.
It's all right. Let's do it. All right. I'll throw you a real easy one here for the first one. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
Control over yourself, whether you can do something, whether you not do something. I think that allows you to be really happy.
Okay. I like that. Which talent would you most like to have?
Oh, I think athleticism. I think it just looks fun. I mean, I was an athlete, but not nearly to the level of the professionals. And they just make it look so fun.
So like what you want to be able to throw a football further? Or?
I think I've always loved track is my favorite sport, but basketball to me, being able to dunk and shoot and do all that fancy stuff, that to me is really exciting. I would love to be able to play basketball at that level. Dude,
I'm 6'2", and watching me try to slam dunk a basketball is just hilarious, man. I think I'm jumping high, but yeah, it ain't happening. What would you consider your greatest achievement?
It's again a cliche. The first that came to mind is my children. I said my son first, but I do have a daughter now, so I got to be fair. My children, I think, looking at them and seeing how they interact, they're going to be. If I don't achieve something, they're going to achieve it and blow it out of the water. I don't see them stopping anything, and I know all parents say that, but I truly believe. And you're going to think I'm crazy, but I think I can learn anything I want. I think nothing is outside of my reach.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all.
If I think that, and I look at my son every day and I think he is leaps and bounds smarter than me, and I already think that I'm pretty smart, he's going to be scary. And I know my daughter is smarter than him. I think that's just a given. So they're going to be my legacy, and I'm super excited for that.
Nice job with that one. Hey, listen, Alex, how can people learn more about you and how you can help them?
Well, they can search Market Adventures podcast. They can search Market Adventures on any podcast platform, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. And they can also reach me at the Instagram page and the Facebook page at Market Adventures Podcast. Pretty straightforward. But they can also, if they want, they can text I have a number set up for text messages from my audience, 786-254-1413. And they can text me there any questions that they have. Again, be it if you're a younger person trying to figure out where to go, or an older person trying to figure out if I still have time left. They can text that number, message any platform. I control all of it. Nobody controls it for me. So you'll get directly to me. And yeah, I think for now, that's where I'm at.
All right. Alex Cunningham, financial literacy coach, athletic trainer, and podcast host. Thanks so much for joining us today. This was a really cool conversation.
I appreciate it. I thank you for picking my brain with those Proust questions. It made me have to dig really deep.
And that's it for this episode of the Business Innovators Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Brown. Until next time, keep innovating.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.